Greetings, and welcome to the chapter on what I consider to be one of, if not the most important and powerful panels in Adobe Photoshop, and that's the Layers panel. Now, I'm in the Essentials workspace right here. So what I'm going to do is pick it up, it's right here, and I'm going to move it over and give it a place of prominence. Why not? I like being able to do that. It's nice to be able to rearrange the furniture, and it makes things a little bit easier. Now we can focus in just on that one panel. Now, can you imagine a time in Adobe Photoshop where there wasn't a Layers panel? Because it actually is true. A long, long time ago in a galaxy far, far away when Photoshop was developed, it didn't have a Layers panel. As a matter of fact, it was one or two versions before we got Layers. So we were stuck when we painted with painting right on here, almost like the real world. And I started out, a lot of you may have too, in oils and watercolors. I still dabble. And when I paint oils, I do layer them. There's a layering technique doing oils, and there's a mixing technique when you do watercolors. But once they dry, they're kind of fused together, aren't they? Layers, the beauty of them, is they allow us the flexibility of layering things, but give us control over the pieces as time goes on. Now, when the Layers panel first came out, and for a lot of years, the maximum number of layers was 100. So that's a lot, and I agree it is. But as I became more engrossed in this program and invested in this program, and I did more stuff, there were times where I wish I'd had more than 100, but they've solved that problem. We now have something like around 8,000 layers, which is ridiculous, I agree. But that gets us back to why Adobe does what they do in these ridiculous things. They're making sure that we don't go back to them and say, I couldn't be creative because you didn't give me what I needed. So they kind of go beyond the pale here, 8,000 layers. If you ever do an 8,000 layer document, please email me. I would just love to see something that big. I have 3 layers, layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, and a background. Now let's look at the panel itself. The layers, what are they? Most of us know this. They're like pieces of acetate. And we can paint on those pieces of acetate, and then we can move them, kind of like a Disney animator, making a cartoon back 50, 60 years ago. Each piece is a separate frame, and although we're not animating these frames, it's the same idea. If I select layer 1, and I pick up my Move tool up here, which I have, and I grab layer 1 and drag it, you can see there's another layer underneath it. If I select layer 3 and drag, even though I'm clicking on layer 2, we'll talk more about selection later, I am then moving that layer. One of the things to remember, unless you have some options set, is that a layer covers the entire canvas, so that if you have it selected, you can come over here all day long and click, but you're only going to get the layer that's selected. Now, there are ways to get around that, but as far as we're concerned right now, let's not worry about that. Let's just say the selected layer has control. Painting, anything you do will be on, in this case, layer 3. If you want to rename a layer, you can double-click on it right here and give it any name that you want to. Let's start at the top. The X, of course, is to remove the panel, get rid of it, close it. If you want it back again, go back to the word Window on the pull-down menu and go down to Layers. Now, not only will it restore the panel, but it will restore it to the same place it was in when you closed it. Over here, you have a collapse button. If you click it, it collapses the panel. If you click it again, it reopens the panel. Over here, you have an Options button. All panels have options. And if you click that button, it gives you options for this particular panel. A lot of the things that you see, like creating layers and different things, can be achieved without going into this area. Shortcuts and a lot of different things that we can do. But as you can see, there's a lot of stuff going on here. And as these chapters wind on, we will get more and more into these options. Here's an interesting feature, especially if you have a lot of layers. We don't, but let's say we do. You've got 150 layers, and you're looking for a particular layer. Now, this is why I am a true believer in naming my layers something that makes sense. Now, layer 1, layer 2, layer 3 don't really mean much to me, but as you're working, name the layers something specific. So now you've got a document that has, 100 or 200 layers in it. That's not unusual. And you say, okay, where is layer X? You go, wow, I've got to scroll for 5 minutes to find this thing. You can come up here to Kind. If you click Kind, you can go into Name. Now, I have 3 layers that are called Layer. I have 1 background. A background isn't technically a layer, but we'll talk more about that later. If I type in here the letter B, it will isolate any layers that begin with the letter B. If I type in the letter L, I'll get my layers here. If we go back here, we can turn that off or turn it back on. If we go back in here and go, say, to kind, I could click here and say, just show me my text layers. Just show me layers with effects. Now, when that first came out, I wasn't really that big of a fan of it. I don't know why, I just didn't think it was that valuable until I started beginning to incorporate it into my workflow. And that's when it became valuable. So if you need to find something and you have a really large document with a lot of layers, that's not too bad to know that you've got that option. Now down here, we have to have something selected to light that stuff up. You have another really cool area, and we are going to spend like an entire chapter just talking about blending modes. Blending modes allow me to blend the elements of one layer with another. I used to teach an entire semester class at university just on that one button in Photoshop. Okay, let's leave that alone for now. We will talk about blending modes. Opacity is self-explanatory, I would think. If I get in here and click opacity, here's a couple of ways we can do this. I can click on the word opacity and drag. And as I drag left or right, I can increase or decrease the opacity of the selected layer. I can click this little button right here and drag a slider, which to me is about the same as clicking up here, so why bother? I can get in there and type in a number if I want to. I can use my up and down arrow keys, 96, 95, 4, 3, 2, 1. If I hold the shift key down, I go 10 points at a time. The cool thing to note about putting the number in here is we are working in an input field. In almost every single input field in Photoshop that requires a number can use the shortcuts that I just showed you. That's pretty neat. Let's look down here. These buttons right here are locking mechanisms. For example, if I go to layer 1, there's a button here that locks transparency. Let me show you something. There is nothing in that layer but that rectangle. Let me go ahead and turn everything back on again. If I come over here and pick up my paintbrush and begin painting a little bit, obviously I can paint anywhere I want to. Now the reason it looks like it's painting over everything is because I'm painting stacking order-wise in the top layer. Let me press undo, my favorite key in the whole world. If I come down to this one and begin painting again, well, as you can see, basically I'm painting in this one, but these two layers are above it, so they're immune to that paint. You can only paint in one layer at a time. Let me undo that. Let's go back to layer 1. Let's turn on the lock transparent areas. Now when you do, and you begin painting, the only area you are going to be able to paint is an area that already has paint in it, in that layer. Let me press undo again. The next one over is to lock the layer from painting. I don't want to make the mistake of accidentally adding some paint to this layer because I like the way it is now. Lock that part out. This one is lock it from moving. I can't tell you how many times I have accidentally moved a layer that I didn't want to move. Of course, that's what undo is for, obviously. But you can lock it. I like where it is. Don't disturb it. Over here, you have a button to lock everything. Blending modes and everything except searching. You can still search. This button over here, Fill, it's been there a while, allows me, well, let me show it to you. If we go into opacity again, we know what opacity does. If we go into Fill, you will notice, well, it looks like it's doing the same thing. You say, okay, what is the difference? Now, this is the teaser. We will talk about that later. But what Fill does is it works with effects. I'll just give you that. It works with effects, where opacity works with the whole layer no matter what's in it. Let's go ahead and select another layer. So we can lock them, transparent areas, anything we want. The layers themselves are controlled by selection. You do have buttons over here to show, hide the layers. Again, that's kind of a given. Down here, you have a couple more buttons. Number 1, you have a button here to chain layers together. Now let's say, for the sake of argument, that I want to move those 3 layers. I can come up here, hold down the Shift key, and click on the layers that I want to move. Then I can come over here and choose my selection tool, or move tool, I should say, and I can move it around. But that's a temporary thing, because I can come back out of this thing now and only get 1 layer, and oops, I'm only moving 1 layer. If I want them as a group, and there's a lot of reasons why you might want that, select them again, and then come and click this button right here, and they become chained together. Now they are chained together for movement and even for resizing, things like that. They're chained together. To get rid of the chain, select them again and turn that off. Now you have to have 1 layer selected to get into like FX. and that's our effects like bevels and embosses. This is a layer mask. I love layer masks. This is a button here for our adjustment layers. You have a button here to make a group, a button here for a new layer, and of course you can click this button right here and delete a layer if you want to. The layers panel, and we're just getting started obviously. The layers panel, it's kind of like our central focus for everything. It gives us small ideas of what's going on here as compared to over here. Now let me show you one more thing though. Let's go into this button, the options, and go down to panel options. You do have some options for the panel. Number one, you can, if you choose, to make these bigger if you want the icons bigger. The contents is an interesting one. Now look at the icon itself. It's the size of the entire area over here. If I say layer bounds and click OK, notice what it did. It only shows me in the thumbnail what is in that layer. I usually like it the other way, so I'm going to turn that one back on again. Down here, you can use default masks on fill layers. We'll get into masks later. We can expand for new effects, and we can add copy to the copied layers and groups. So when you make a copy, it actually has the word copy on it. That's why you see the word copy, because it's selected here. Let's go ahead and click OK. And that's about it. Kind of layers 101, I suppose, but it's a good introduction into what I consider to be the most powerful panel in this entire program.